Hello there, enthusiasts. Vance here. Toyota is many things: reliable, efficient, profitable, the automotive equivalent of drinking enough water and getting 8 hours of sleep. For decades, Toyota became so good at making sensible cars that people began associating the brand with responsibility itself. If a Toyota were a person, it will probably remind you to file your taxes on time and then help you do them, which is why the existence of the Lexus LFA makes absolutely no sense because at some point, the company famous for building dependable transportation looked at a carbon fiber V10 supercar project and said, yes, not why, not how much will it cost, just yes. The result was one of the most celebrated performance cars ever built. A machine so obsessed with engineering perfection that its engine revved faster than conventional vehicles could physically display. The other solution: build a digital tachometer. Not because it was trained, because reality wasn't updating quickly enough. And somehow, that still wasn't the strangest thing Toyota would do. Years later, the company would launch a rally bred hatchback that looked like it escaped from a tuning forum. Then it will begin experimenting with V8 powered race car development programs in an automotive era increasingly focused on electrification. From the outside, this project seemed disconnected: a supercar, a rally car, a future GT3 machine, a tiny hatchback with deeply concerning ambitions. But they are all connected because none of them began inside a boardroom. At least, not really. Their story begins decades earlier on mountain roads, industrial districts, parking areas, and tuning shops hidden behind unremarkable buildings. Places where enthusiasts spent years asking a simple question: what happens if we push this a little further? Then asking it again and again and again. This is the story of how Japan's underground car culture didn't just influence manufacturing, it eventually reached one of the largest automakers on earth and changed it from the inside. Long before Gazoo Racing existed, Japan already possessed one of the most sophisticated enthusiast ecosystems in the world, not because it was centrally planned, not because a manufacturer designed it, but because thousands of people independently became obsessed with making cars better, faster, sharper, more responsive. The process looked chaotic because it was. Street racers pushed cars to their limits, tuning shops fixed weaknesses, motorsports exposed new problems, engineers found solutions. Then, those solutions filtered back into enthusiast culture. The cycle repeated endlessly, a kind of automotive natural selection. Only instead of evolution producing strong animals, it produced increasingly unreasonable turbocharger setups. The important thing wasn't speed itself. Speed was merely the symptom. The real obsession was refinement. Take a typical tailgate driver. They weren't simply looking for more horsepower. Horsepower alone often created new problems. Too much power could upset balance, increase heat, reduce reliability, complicate corner exits. The fastest car wasn't necessarily the most powerful, it was often the most refined. This distinction will become incredibly important later because refinement became one of the defining characters of Japanese performance culture. Not excess, not spectacle, refinement. The constant pursuit of small improvements, one adjustment at a time, a better suspension setting, a more responsive differential, a slightly improved cooling solution, an engine map refined through hundreds of hours of testing, small gains accumulating into something extraordinary, and eventually, manufacturers began paying attention. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Toyota had a problem, not a financial problem, quite the opposite. They got bored of being sensible. The company was enormously successful: reliable cars, strong sales, global expansion, everything looked healthy. But success can create its own risks because once a company becomes extremely good at avoiding mistakes, it can also become extremely good at avoiding excitement. Inside Toyota, concerns began emerging that the company had become too focused on efficiency, too focused on process, too focused on logic, which sounds like a strange criticism until you realize we are discussing a company that will later build the LFA. The concern was simple: Toyota still knew how to build great cars, but did it still know how to build cars people dreamed about? And that question will eventually lead to one of the most important figures in modern Toyota history, Akio Toyoda. For years, Toyota's public image and enthusiast image existed in parallel universes. One Toyota sold millions of reliable vehicles. The other Toyota lived in old rally footage, tuning culture, motorsport history, and enthusiast memories. The problem wasn't capability. Toyota knew how to build exciting cars. The problem was institutional gravity. Large companies naturally optimize themselves. Processes improve, risks decrease, predictability increases, which is wonderful for shareholders, slightly less wonderful for people who enjoy hearing an engine make decisions in real time. Enter Akio Toyoda. Unlike many corporate executives, he wasn't satisfied with reading reports about performance cars. He wanted to drive them, race them, break them, understand them. Because there are two ways to learn about cars. You can read data, or you can discover at 2 a.m. that a brake pedal has developed new opinions. One method tends to create stronger memories. Under the racing pseudonym Morizo, Toyota participated in motorsport events and gradually became convinced of something important. The best cars aren't developed in conference rooms. They are developed where assumptions fail, which usually happens at speed. This led to the birth of Gazoo Racing. Gazoo Racing began in an almost suspiciously unglamorous way, not as a grand corporate master plan, not as a marketing campaign, but as a racing effort, a laboratory, a place where Toyota could learn. The philosophy was simple: race cars, break cars, fix cars, improve cars. Repeat until either performance improves or accounting intervenes. Motorsport forces honesty. Road tests can be selective, marketing can be selective. A stopwatch is not. The Nürburgring became one of the most important proving grounds. The circuit has a reputation for exposing weaknesses with remarkable efficiency: suspension problems, cooling issues, durability concerns, questionable engineering decisions. The Nürburgring eventually discovers them all. Many manufacturers use it, but Gazoo Racing embraced it as part of a broader philosophy. Failure wasn't embarrassing, failure was information. That mindset should sound familiar because it's essentially the same feedback loop that existed in Japan's tuning culture decades earlier, just with larger budgets and few opportunities to explain yourself to law enforcement. Then came the Lexus LFA, and suddenly Toyota did something nobody expected. It built a car that felt almost irrational. The LFA wasn't designed to dominate sales charts. It wasn't designed to maximize profit. If anything, it appeared to be the result of engineers being left unsupervised for an extended period of time. The development process reportedly stretched for years. Materials changed, technologies evolved, entire sections of the project were rethought repeatedly. At one point, the car transitioned from aluminum construction to carbon fiber reinforced plastic. Imagine redesigning a supercar halfway through development because the engineers decided they had a better idea. That's not normal behavior, that's obsession. The V10 engine became legendary, not merely because of power, but because of response, because of sound, because of character. Toyota and Yamaha famously worked to shape its acoustic experience. Most companies tries to make engines quiet. The LFA team effectively treated the engine like a musical instrument, and somehow it worked. The result wasn't simply a fast car, it was an emotional one. The kind of machine people remembers years after the numbers stop mattering. Then came the cars that changed Toyota's enthusiast reputation. The GR era begins. Toyota GR 86, Toyota GR Supra, Toyota GR Corolla, and perhaps most importantly, the Toyota GR Yaris. The GR Yaris feels almost impossible. A rally-inspired homologation special appearing during an era dominated by crossovers. A small hatchback developed with motorsport priorities. A car that exists because Somebody inside Toyota looked at market trends and chose violence, metaphorically mostly. The GR Yaris wasn't merely fast, it felt intentional, purpose built, like a machine developed by people who still enjoy driving, which shouldn't be a revolutionary concept. And yet, this is where everything connects. The feedback loop returns. The underground scene, the tuning shops, motorsport, Gazoo Racing, the LFA, the GR cars, they are all manifestations of the same process. Test, learn, refine, repeat. The tools changed, the environment changed, the scale changed, the philosophy remained recognizable, which is why Gazoo Racing feels different from a traditional performance division. It doesn't merely sell performance, it develops it continuously. The process never truly ends. There's always another improvement, another lesson, another weakness to eliminate, another idea worth exploring. Which brings us to the present, and perhaps the most interesting question of all. What happens when this philosophy continues evolving? The answer appears to be motorsport again. Toyota's GT3 ambitions, new racing platforms, experimental performance programs, and perhaps most intriguingly, the V8 powered GR development concepts that have appeared in testing and racing related discussions. On paper, a V8 powered GR project sounds almost absurd, which is precisely why enthusiasts immediately became interested, because it feels familiar, not necessarily the engine itself, the mindset behind it, the willingness to experiment, to test unusual combinations, to chase emotional engagement in an increasingly digital automotive landscape. The details may change, the philosophy doesn't. People often talk about car culture as if it's separate from manufacturers, as if enthusiasts and automakers exist in different worlds. But Japan's story suggests something else. Sometimes the culture wins, sometimes ideas developed in garages, tuning shops, racetracks, and enthusiast communities slowly work their way upstream, and eventually they reach the manufacturers themselves. The result isn't always obvious. It might look like a supercar, it might look like a rally hatchback, it might look like a future GT3 machine, but underneath all of them lives the same idea that performance is not a destination, it's a process, a never ending pursuit of refinement, the same pursuit that shaped Japan's underground legends, the same pursuit that helped create the LFA, the same pursuit now living inside Gazoo Racing. And perhaps that's the strangest part of all. The lost era of Japanese street racing never really disappeared. It just kept getting promoted. Click like if you enjoyed the video.